Hello and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy Podcast. This is Jed and we are in the Meno. An update for everybody. There is a massive cyclone about to hit where I live. Tens of thousands of people around me are without power. Strangely, I still have power and an internet connection, so I am taking an hour out to quickly do another podcast while I still can. Likely the power will be out for a few days after this, but I wanted to get something out there for even though there are only, a dozen or so people. It should be more than a dozen people, but even though there are only a dozen or so people who seem to be following on YouTube, I wanted to put something out while I can for you guys, because I appreciate that you are following along at whatever capacity you are, even if it's on 1.5x speed. I hear some people watch. I watch a lot of stuff like that too. So this is just to keep putting something out there for you guys who are following. So I hope you have fun today. Let's jump into the text. Here we are. Move that chair out of the way. Let's jump in. Wait. So here is where we are in the text. Remember, Anytos is suspicious of anyone complaining to know about virtue, especially teachers who charge money, and he seems to think it's something that is Did he mention something about common sense? Let's read from here. Anytos saying, you know who is insane? The sophists, the very ones who profess to be the wisest of human beings, and even charge money for your course, be it a drop shipping alpha male red pill podcast course through all of those grifters, or just a regular university course that doesn't teach understanding. They claim to be the wisest, and yet they do harm. They knowingly deceive and mistreat the young, or they deceive and mistreat the young, unaware that they are doing it, says Anytos. So they are insane, but you know who's more insane? The young men who give their money to Andrew Tate. The Western capitalist education system. You fill in the gaps. And even more insane are their relatives who entrusted their young ones to these sophists, we call them. And especially most insane are the cities who allow people like this to exist, systems like this to exist, and didn't drive them out of the city. Where are the people who are supposed to know more than the rest of us and ruling our city to help us? What injustice have you undergone from the sophists, Anytos? Says Socrates. Why would you be so hard on them? Anytos, no, I have never associated with any of them, nor would I allow anyone else of my own family. then you have absolutely no experience of these people. Anitos. Yeah, and may it remain so. Then, O Blessed One. Now, O Blessed One, D, let's zoom into the Greek so you can see it for yourself. We can learn Greek as we go. D, that funny symbol is a D. That thing that looks like an A is an A. That thing that looks like an I is an I. That thing that looks like a U with, that's crying a tear, that's an M. You can kind of see maybe this little, the droopy part could, if you extend that, you could turn it into an M, I suppose. The O looks like the O is an O. The V is an N, and you can just imagine the V upside down like an N. And there is a D-A-I-M-O-N. What does that spell? Daemon. Remember Socrates saying that the eudaimonia, to be the good daemon, is our goal. There's also a certain kind of... so the word blessed doesn't really describe it, but it's kind of in the ballpark in that you are blessed. In that it's a divine state. Like it's the highest, the most God-like. The good daemon functions through the logos to benefit us. So that's what we learn to become aware of in midwifery, how the messages in our thoughts, the problems we have, our random tangents, our fantasies, and especially our dreams are crafted to help us, to guide us. That's the providence, the way that we learn to listen and unpack that guidance. That's the logos. So that's how the daemon can function, through logos and providentially, beneficially. But earlier Socrates said, also there's a state of happiness. And so we are wondering if there is a state of happiness associated with this daemon-like functioning, God-like functioning. What is that happiness? Because it's not bliss, it's not pleasure. Because the daemon state is also associated with phronesis. Phronesis is what we've been wondering about, because we've concluded that even the experience of reality, being, that can be used to harm or benefit. Therefore, there has to be something else guiding us, phronesis. We have to be guided by phronesis and guided to phronesis. If we do, we can relax and be assured by Socrates that anything that we undergo, everything that we experience, will end up with us, if we are guided by this phronesis, in reaching the state of the good daemon, which is a state of happiness, which is a kind of functioning, which is a kind of divine state, which must be associated with phronesis some way, which must be associated with the self in some way. So these are all questions about what exactly is the daemon, but keep in mind it is a question. We're wondering about what it is. Why is it our goal? And how is it associated with virtue and phronesis? Nevertheless, he is dropping it in here. Daemon. That's why it's important to have the Greek. Because blessed, you can interpret that a lot of different ways. But this is a puzzle. And given that Socrates said, let's look at it for ourselves. Given that Socrates said that if we find this virtue, if we find out how to learn this virtue, and we have this virtue ourselves, so we actually get what we're after in the text, then we will end up with phronesis. Phronesis. Phronesis will therefore either be entirely virtue, excellence. Accordingly, then, we do declare that virtue or excellence to be either wholly or a certain part phronesis. So, if phronesis is beyond existence, if it's tied to that which is beyond existence, beyond being, and we've learned that we can learn about being. We can learn about being because being is the object of knowledge. Therefore, our education is to remember what our soul, the immortal part of our soul, knows. Therefore, if virtue happened to be one of the aspects of being, we could say, yeah, you can learn virtue. You can go through this process of mastering the art of the logos, practicing the dialectic, hopefully with friends. Apply that dialectic to virtue, which is one of the beings, which can culminate in the experience of nous. Excuse me. Wizard Man. Hello, welcome to the chat. Which means the dialectic applied to virtue. What is the excellence? What is the best we can be? What is it that makes us good people, good person? You returned from hospital. Oh, how did it go? What games did you play on Switch? Okay, back on Saturday to Monday. Well, you're not going to miss much of the stream because there's a cyclone about to hit my town tonight. Minecraft, Stardew Valley. Ooh, classics. And yeah, I'm in Australia and there's a cyclone about to hit. And my block has power and internet, which is strange because it's going out everywhere. So I just jumped on to make sure I do a quick stream for anyone who's a follower of the channel. And I caught a fish. You're here. So it's good that I did it. So how'd the visit go? Yes, hopefully it whisks away all of the creepy spiders and not just the cars and people. Yeah. That would be good. Where would they all go? Would they end up in some island? Some like cursed island made up entirely of creepy spiders, broken down cars, and corpses. Cars, people, and spiders. But how did the visit go? Was it a success? You made some friends. Oh, neat. Felt closer to my spiritual goals. Wow. Sounds like you're aiming for the kind of true friendship that Socrates has been talking about with Meno. Actually, these are all references 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 to the word friend. So friendship is a theme of this text. Where we are in the text, Anitos is saying, hey, my family or friends, I would never send them to these sophists, these people who are claiming to be wise but not. Earlier, when Meno was starting to be a bit of a goose, starting to get a bit butthurt with Socrates, pretending that he didn't know what color was, to try and poke holes in the dialectic, well, you asked me questions following steps of reason, together concluding to lead to a definition of, was it shape? But what if one of those conclusions, I didn't actually know what one of those terms were? You used color. What if I don't know what color is? And Socrates says, hang on a second. If we were friends, here we go. Shape, this is the conclusion of the dialectic on page 8. Remember, Socrates is giving the model, the paradigm of thinking, the paradigm of conversation, and maybe the paradigm for how to become an actual, true, good friend. So the conclusion of that dialectic was shape. So a definition of shape, because that was the question, how do you use the dialectic to define what shape is? Shape is the only one of the truly existing beings which always happen to follow color. Does that suffice for you, Meno? For if you were to speak about virtue in the same way I speak about shape, in other words, the way I speak about shape, the dialectic I've just used, apply it to our question, what is excellence or virtue? Then I'd be happy. Then we can make some progress. Meno's like, well, instead of doing that, instead of changing my mind and learning a new model, I'm going to attack you, Socrates. Socrates, that's a simple-minded answer. You're a bit of a dummy. What do you mean? Because shape is in some way, according to your logos, that which always follows color. But then if someone were to say that they did not know what color is, but were in the same difficulty as they were about shape, what would you have answered them? Someone didn't know what shape was, didn't know what color was. Socrates said, well, you know how I'd answer them? With the truth. What does that mean? Obviously, he's going to be telling the truth, but does the truth involve something in its delivery? I don't know. I would answer the truth as far as I am concerned. And if on the one hand, the questioner were indeed one of those wise ones, inverted commas, what we now call the sophists, which are the heuristic and antagonistic kind. Heuristic is using words to persuade, manipulate, not to seek the truth, not to benefit. We might call that modern philosophy. And antagonistic, using words to fight, to debate, we call them debate bros. Again, most philosophers nowadays in the Roman, not the Greek tradition, tend to use their study to fight and debate their own personal opinions rather than free themselves from their personal opinions they got from their childhood and instead seek the truth. So if they're one of those people, what we now call sophists, who are actually heuristic and antagonistic, I would say to him, hey, my answer has been stated. If I did not state it correctly, it's your work to take up the logos and refute me. Whereas, says Socrates to Meno, if we were friends, philoi. Notice, philoi is philosophy, the first part of philosophy. So it's a high kind of friendship. If we were friends and we chose to be discoursing just with each other as you and I were now doing, then I would reply in a more gentle way and more in the way of the dialectician. Thus, the more dialectical way is not only to answer the truth, but equally to proceed by means of the premises the one who is doing the questioning acknowledges they know. We're moving together. Do you know what color is? You do? Okay, well, I'm the one leading, and I acknowledge that you know, so now we'll use that and we'll build on that. That is the way in which I endeavor to converse with you. So, friendship, right at the beginning, right after giving us the paradigm of the dialectic, the model for how to think, and how to be how to think and define. Notice, Socrates called it a theatrical tragedy that he spent all this money studying and thinks he knows virtue, but he doesn't know how to understand or define anything because he doesn't know the dialectic. Also, Socrates said, and because you're not learning the dialectic, you won't have the spiritual initiation into nous. Dialectic is true. It's also a pattern. It's also a pattern that extends to all things, be it the unfolding of reality, be it the position of the planets in our galaxy, in our solar system, be it the Greek diatonic scale of music. But it also not only unfolds out, it brings us back. So those were the two big things Socrates said about Meno's education. You don't know how to understand and define anything, that's the dialectic, and because you're not following the dialectic, you haven't been initiated into what it's like to separate your soul from the body and directly grasp being. That experience, in the same way my hand immediately grasps this baseball through touch, so too can your mind immediately grasp being. That's the object of knowledge. That's why one of the things we asked earlier was, is virtue one of the aspects of being? If it is, then it can be grasped, which means we can learn how to grasp it through the dialectic, and therefore we can learn virtue. But it seems virtue might be even beyond that. That's our puzzle. So after giving us what we need to do those things Meno lacks, understand anything, define anything, he then went on to say, by the way, that's also not only the paradigm for understanding, the paradigm for how to give a definition, the paradigm or the model for the spiritual quest, but also it's the paradigm or model for friendship.
It's a win-win. It's a win-win. It's a win-win.
So that's interesting. So the dialectic is a key theme so far. Friendship is also one of those key themes. So carry that with us. Yep, friendship is a huge goal for growth, personal and social. People really do help, and loneliness is a killer. Yes, we say often in this channel, philosophy ain't a solo quest. It is the quest of man. It is your quest. And anyone listening to it who isn't on the quest, consider this your call to adventure. On the hero's journey, there is someone who says, by the way, there's a whole new world outside of Hobbit Town, that we are inviting you on a quest to become a hero by leaving this small world that you are currently familiar with and going out into the whole of Middle-earth. Same thing with Star Wars. And all of the heroes' journeys. Call to adventure.
I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure.
That's Gandalf giving the call. And here's another call to adventure from another popular mythology you might be familiar with.
You're a wizard, Harry.
There you go. So consider this your call to adventure. Us pointing out that this is the human quest, your quest. To follow the logos. To know what's knowable and ask the question, is the self knowable? And how do we reach the self? What's that got to do with phronesis? What's all that got to do with virtue? And what's all that got to do with the daemon? We got a lot of questions. Oh, by the way, what's it called if you carry questions? You're on a quest. So, even though it is the quest of man, and therefore, we all are on it whether we like it or not, it's not a solo quest. So we're at a very strange, unique, peculiar period of history where we have what we need to reawaken the logos and reawaken this quest that has been laying dormant for 1500 years. And we need to, right now. We need to make friends in this better way, this spiritual way, this true friendship way, based on what? When you make friends, how do you relate to them? You find something in common that you can talk about or bond over. Do you want to bond over ignorance? Do you want to bond over beliefs? Do you want to bond over injustice? Do you want to bond over small talk? Do you want to bond over gossip? Do you want to bond over the things in this physical world down the bottom, this bottom level of being, this bottom level of reality, images? What images do you like? What do you think of Tom Cruise? What do you think of, I don't know, this sports team? Your opinions, your beliefs, keeping us stuck in this physical world? Or are we going to bond over understanding? That's the difference. Because understanding is the logos. Allows us to follow the logos, learn the dialectic, apply that dialectic to ourselves, that's ousia. All of those is a new way of being, a new kind of friendship that Socrates calls the gentler way and the way of a true friend, the dialectic. Oh, hi, welcome, Genevieve. Yes. Oh, so you've seen the Discord, me talking about how there's a cyclone on the way. It's supposed to hit this afternoon, so in a few hours. I still have power and internet, so I'm trying to get a quick stream out there while I can before my power suddenly shuts off. So, and I might be without power for a week, maybe a few days, hopefully not long. The cyclone is coming. It's it's planned to not directly go through my city, but the next city over. But it's huge, so it'll probably hit us quite hard as well. So, bond over understanding, which is a theme of philosophy. Bond over. What's love without understanding? Tough love. Ugh, tyranny. Did Hitler love Germany? Did the Nazi soldiers show their love for their motherland by blind loyalty and to be bound together by blind loyalty to their dear leader, Hitler? Yes. They showed their love by a kind of bond based on what? Images, opinions, and beliefs, which are nothing to do with truth and can also be very easily manipulated. That's what Socrates pointed out to us as well. He said, we reread this part here where he said, here we go. So the dialectic that links good and bad with benefit and harm. If you are led to believe that bad things benefit the one that becomes bad, hang on a second. If you think that bad things are good because you are led to believe that, then you will seek the bad things. Or if you are led to believe that bad things actually benefit, you will seek the bad things. Both instances of you seeking a bad thing, both based on belief. So all you have to do is manipulate the images and beliefs of people, and you can get people to do bad things that harm them. Like Hitler, like every single marketing department for every corporation. How do we manipulate the images and beliefs to get people to act in a way that harms them but profits us? That's capitalism. That's why capitalism is fucked. and needs to be replaced. We're waiting for some adults in the room to actually use some basic reason, put two and two together, and use that enhanced wisdom that seems to be lacking from all of the current sophists who claim to be wiser but aren't, that can actually take the reins and actually use their higher intelligence, higher awareness of what is good and beneficial to arrange society in a way where we can help people. In other words, where are the Michael Jordans of our team? Because they should be leading. Currently, we have the water boy, not just the water boy. We've got some person who hates basketball and hates basketball players as the captain of our basketball team. Why? The pathologos, our false image of what it means to be virtuous, is actively against truth and logos, because truth and logos lead you to the true, what we're doing here, definition of virtue, which will challenge the false one. Just as Socrates is introducing logos and dialectic to Meno, Meno is finding out what he thought was virtuous, what he thought was good, what he thought was beneficial was all wrong.
This guy had to admit that the people in his life who helped convince him to be a conservative in the first place, parents, clergy, other authority figures, were wrong. Not only was wrong, but lied to him, and that he fell for it. All of that takes so much courage and character.
And it's that courage and character that we need to be in this game, to accept that call to adventure. Because when Meno was finding out that he was wrong, his reaction was to counterattack against Socrates, call him names, threaten him. We're 3/4 of the way through the text, he still thinks he should be in charge of the conversation. He's been shown that he is wrong and his beliefs are harmful. He still thinks he should be in charge. That's our world. That's the pathologos. That's why we say this quest is for everyone. Your soul is always seeking the good and the self. It has to. So you're in this quest. The difference is, if you stay asleep to that quest, you're not actually seeking the true good, the true self, the true benefit, the true virtue. You are seeking a distorted image, which is the opposite and is opposed to it. You will be one of those heuristic and antagonistic people here who think they're wise. What's the name of that? Pathologos. How do you remove the pathologos? With an understanding and mastery of the dialectic and logos we call philosophical midwifery. Do we have it? Are they at every street corner? Do you walk past a McDonald's and have a midwifery store next door to it? Are there as many midwifery locations as there are McDonald's? Are we insisting that philosophical midwifery is a daily activity for any leader? No. We're being ruled by the image of virtue, which is actually vice and is causing our harm, until we wake up to what Socrates is showing us, what we need to solve our problems. We are learning what we need to solve problems and find truth. And that requires moving from beliefs to understanding, because beliefs can be manipulated. So you can wonder, hang on a second, if people who are in charge are the most pathologos driven, the least likely to understand the good, the least likely to be able to give care, but understanding is what's needed to solve problems. Generally speaking, in our current age, what are the leaders doing with our education system? Are they trying to stop us from learning understanding? Are they trying to stop us from communicating so we can discover understanding each other ourselves? Are they trying to keep our life stressed and focused on making money by being a slave to them so we don't have time to develop understanding, so that we are stuck in the level of images and opinions and beliefs that they can manipulate through the institutions they run and the media they run, the marketing department, the biggest department of most universities in in Australia, New Zealand anyway, but in capitalist places are usually around marketing, which is how to manipulate people to act against their own interests, literally how to fucking harm people, because capitalism has nothing to do with good. At no point does capitalism say help the good, learn the good and serve the good. Nope. It's no way to do with benefit, help people. Nope. And no way to do with the movement from beliefs to understanding, which is what is good and helps people. It's the first step, not the last step. So that's the insane world that we are living in down here as a result of not knowing the logos and being manipulated by opinions and beliefs. Same holds true for friendship. The bond that you seek in friendship, or even romantic love, what happens when it's based on images? What's going to be ruling your relationship? What's going to be the thing in charge? What's going to be the telos, the end goal? Socrates says, if you are guided by logos and dialectic, coordinated with whatever experience of knowledge or nous you have, ultimately to reach a even higher state called phronesis. And if phronesis is leading your soul in harmony with those other two things, you will reach the highest state called the good daemon state. You'll get there. But if it's opposite, the pathologos, not the state of phronesis, the virtue of the self, but the image of virtue of the self, the false image of the self and the false image of knowing, that's what guides relationships, that's what guides your soul, that's what guides our culture, that's what is guiding everything. Until we wake up and realize that and start to become an active member in our own soul's rulership. That's why it's a game for everyone. We all have something ruling our soul, and it's something to do with the self, and it's either A, your pathologos, which is the cause of harm, or B, this, the self logos. So, what's your relationships? What's your friendships going to be like? Easy. You're going to be trying to use that friendship or use that relationship to create the conditions where you can play out your image of virtue. You can play out what you think is your highest state. You can even insist that your partner be more like that image. Because if this is your image of beautiful, if this is your image of good, don't you want your friend to be more beautiful and good? The thing is, our image of the pathologos, the false idea of the self, came from, or functions to, crush the self, crush the logos, crush the movement from beliefs and opinions and images to understanding, crush the development, crush the mind. Let's not talk about ideas. Let's not talk about what's true. Let's not talk about the immortal soul that we both have. Let's not talk about our mind that we both share. Let's not talk about the self that we both have. Maybe there's just one self. Let's talk about physical things. Let's debate opinions and beliefs and images and stay trapped in this physical world. So, one is a kind of caustic friendship, one is a true friendship based on understanding, or the logos. Same thing applies with love. Love without understanding, uh-oh. Have you ever heard the expression tough love? Have you heard the Catholic Inquisition, the Dark Ages, the Inquisition, where they were torturing people? Obviously they're pathologos, obviously sadistic and wrong, obviously terrible. Their justification, oh, love. I'm showing Christ's love. Mother Teresa, famous for imprisoning and torturing sick and dying people, abusing, taking pleasure in the abuse and torture of the most poor, sick, vulnerable people. Mother Teresa. Fun fact about her. That's what she was doing. Why? Because their suffering brought them, this is what she thought. Again, obviously not. Obviously, she has never reflected on her terrible fucking false beliefs. Acting in one of the worst possible ways. Them suffering, caused by her, by the way, brings them closer to God's love because Jesus suffered, apparently. That's what I was told when I was a stupid girl, listening to my stupid parents with their stupid beliefs. Thus, the impact of people staying at the level of beliefs and not thinking, understanding, seeing for themselves. And do we want that kind of love? Do we want tough love? Do we want crusades, torture and abuse love? Do we want Mother Teresa's love? Of course not. By the way, you pick any religion, they will have a sick view of love that diminishes the self in order to prevent the movement out of the religion, because not just religion, any group unified by beliefs. So what? Do you want that? Therefore, what can we say about love without understanding? And equally so, how much better would love be with understanding? And how much better would a friendship or romantic relationship be if it was a kind of bond built on understanding? Are we developing that bond with each other in this channel? Are we developing that bond with Socrates? Are we developing that bond with the Logos? By reading the Logos in the text together. Are we developing a bond with Providence, the Self, based on understanding that we are getting from understanding this text? What would it be like to become a friend with yourself? And if there is a friendship you can have with yourself based on understanding, modeled by Socrates maybe in this text, what's that got to do with the daemon? These are all a bunch of good questions that I don't know the answer to, but I am very curious about and wondering about and like sharing with you all here. So I appreciate the chat and the comments. Allows us to apply what we're reading to our everyday lives, which is the dialectic. Because the dialectic has definition and then demonstration, and then to function with it. So these questions allow us to put into action, apply what we're learning. I was muted for a few seconds. So, we're at the daemon. Why is Socrates, when Anytos is saying, hey, confidently, saying he knows what the sophists are, he knows that they're harming people, he knows that they are crazy, but also more crazy are the people who go and learn from these sophists. Worse than that are their relatives who allow it, and worse than that is the city that allows these charlatans to exist and harm our young. After making these declarative statements, why would Socrates say, oh demonic one? Obviously he's joking. Anytos is definitely not at that level of daemon yet. But why? Is it to remind us? Hey, by the way, is he asking us, hey, is this demonic? I mean, there are a lot of anti-intellectual people in the world who still claim to know, even though they've never studied anything, and they're very doubtful or hateful or angry at the people who actually learn things. Could he be the opposite of the daemon? A closed-minded bigot? Anti-intellectual fascist? The dumbest people who are the most certain? The Dunning-Kruger effect? Magnets, how do they work? No one knows. I'm not asking a scientist, they be lying, is the meme song. Insane Clown Posse. Confidently asserting things about something they know nothing about, while attacking scientists who know how magnets work. I mean, the bar is low for Insane Clown Posse, but that's the point. Could that be why he's saying, oh, demonic one? Ironic, funny, reminding us, asking us a question. Let's keep it in the back of our minds. So, how can you know about this? Whether it is anything good in itself, or whether it is worthless. Right, this what we're talking about, this topic, these teachers, these sophists. If you have absolutely no experience. Anytos, easily. I don't need to experience. I know who these people are. Whether I have experience of them or not. Perhaps you are a seer, Anytos. Since in what other way could you know about them? For from that which you yourself say about them, I am left to wonder. However, let us not try to find out who those are to whom Meno would become worthless, those sophists, those con artists, those grifters, those belief-based thinkers, the people who are not bound by understanding, are not bound by the logos and dialectic. Let's not talk about those jerks. Let us just call them the sophists and put them aside. Do a good deed, Anytos, and tell us who those others are. For the sake of your paternal companion Meno here, by telling his self. Remember, what's our focus if we're just? The self, phronesis. So that's our goal, to figure out how do we learn virtue if it's in phronesis, if it's part of the self and beyond what we can know. Because it's the self that does the knowing. So the self has to be higher than the object of knowing. And also something has to cause knowing, cause being. So that's the self. We're very curious and puzzled about what that is and how do we get there. But the point is, we came to the conclusion that we have to be in order for us to be good and beneficial, it has to be phronesis. We have to be for all human beings, everything depends on our soul, our mind, our psyche, and the excellences, the ideals of our soul depend on phronesis, if they intend to be good. It's to do with what leads. If the soul is guided by phronesis, everything you attempt or endure will end in you reaching your goal of being that good daemon. If not, you'll end in the opposite way. All of the selves, all of the excellences or virtues of soul are neither beneficial nor harmful in and of themselves, but they become beneficial or harmful by the addition of phronesis, or harmful with a lack of phronesis or the pathologos. So, phronesis is key. It's the big one. It's what we're after. But what's really curious is it's what we're after in people who are seeking our highest excellence, our highest virtue, and what we need to be to reach our highest goal. But Socrates is saying, hey, even when you talk with people, look for the self. Talk to their self. Don't talk to their image. Don't talk to their ego. Don't talk to their whatever mask they're putting on. Talk to their self. What's their real question? What do they... Invite them to this kind of true friendship based on, well, we said a bond of understanding, but also we can add that bond of understanding to be used to either talk to or reach the self. So we can save some time and polish up our conclusion, our hypothesis, by saying, well, bound by understanding means the logos. In order to reach even beyond enlightenment, even beyond knowing, to the self, and the self, the state of self, pure self. That which has even the experience of knowledge, of remembering. We can put both of those ideas and say we are bound by a different kind of friendship, a new way of being for everyone. No one is excluded. Anyone can play. You're all philosophers.
I'm looking for someone
You're a wizard, Harry.
an adventure.
A way of being, a true friendship, a new group for humanity that everyone is included. No need for punishment, war, division, violence, bloodshed. A bond based on self-logos. Understanding logos to reach and talking to the self. So, self-logos, the new way of being. Tell your friends. Now, when I said I tell your friends and I laughed, the laugh was because it's true. It sounds obvious and simple when you say it out loud. And that's the funny part. To say, oh yeah, there's a new way of being that we all need to embrace that can solve human problems, but also is innate. We are the self. We are following the logos. That's our stage of development. So all we need to do is recognize that and create a new group, a new way of being bound together in friendship or as a species based on this new way of being called the self-logos. Simple as that. Now, you might say, well, it sounds simple when you say it, but to get to the stage where it was simple and obvious to the fact that you even had a laugh about it, required some work. Required you to be puzzled about the beliefs you didn't even know you have at the beginning. To be open to being wrong about those beliefs. To go through that process of dialectic with like-minded people, like the people in our community. to even surface those beliefs you didn't even know you had, and then question them, and then free yourself from beliefs, and then understand that beliefs themselves are stupid, are only a low stage of development. Beliefs are a low cognitive ability we have. We have greater abilities than beliefs. In fact, then you have to realize that this isn't just me. It's not just true for me that so long as I am carrying beliefs, I am manipulated and harmed by it. It's universal. That's what we just read. Beliefs themselves are harmful. As a way of being, as a step to reach understanding, they're fine. Remember, to reach understanding, to reach nous, to reach phronesis, to reach the daemon, that's the goal. That's the direction. That's the true path. And then using that freedom from beliefs to reflect and become curious about the logos. To become curious about how to read in a new way without interpretation. Because everyone interprets differently. So number one, you're not going to see what the author is saying. And we're not going to be unified as a group reading together if we're interpreting. Also, we're going to be wrong because our personal interpretations are based on our personal beliefs, images, and opinions, which are based on our pathologos. So we're always going to be wrong. That's an interesting thing to discover. If you're motivated by interpretation or personal beliefs, you will be wrong. And likely, you'll be doing harm, whether you're aware of it or not. That's an important thing to discover, which requires courage, reflection, openness, curiosity. All of these things Socrates is helping us realize is valuable. And at the end of all that, it's obvious. Oh yeah, well, no shit, if beliefs cause harm and they're just a stepping stone to a more mature and rational way of using your own consciousness, understanding, and understanding unites everyone and also benefits everyone, and it's also this spiritual quest. Oh my god, understanding ticks every single fucking box, and you need understanding to solve problems. Holy crap. And that's called the dialectic in logos? Well, where does it lead? Leads to the self. Where is it from? It's from the self. Well, what do I get if I follow it? You'll discover the true nature of self, which might be the highest possible idea of God. So what do we call that logos? How about self-logos? So there's your new group, political party, religion. No, obviously not religion, it's a different kind of group, but it's to be unified, to come together, or even to show love through a bond of self-logos. That's it. That's what we need. That's what Socrates has been pointing out and demonstrating. And he is saying, hey, listen, you seem to be really sure of yourself, Anitos. Maybe you are a great daemon yourself. Maybe you've reached this. You seem to be very certain as you knock down other people. But please, help your friend here. Help your friend Meno. We're not going to send him to the sophists. By following the dialectic, by being a friend to both of us, especially Meno, by following the dialectic as we explore what is virtue, is it teachable, and therefore, who should we send Meno to if he genuinely wants to learn it? And also us. Where do we go? Where do we learn this virtue stuff? if it's so goddamn important. So perhaps you're a seer, Anito, so how else could you know about them? I'm left to wonder. Interesting. He's wondering. He's not mad at him for being stupid and ignorant, for claiming to know about that which he just said he has no experience of and he has a strong prejudice against. No, he's just wondering. Is that part of virtue? What's he wondering about? The self? The difficulties this self is going through with these particular false beliefs? Don't know, but he's wondering. Let us try not to find out who those sophists are who will make Meno worthless, but do a good deed. And for the sake of your paternal companion, so I guess friend on your father's side, tell Meno here who he can go in order to become worthy of the logos of excellence. Interesting. So we've even tied logos to our goal virtue. So we talked about the self logos. We can also say the virtue logos. How do you become worthy of it? Anitos, why did you not tell him yourself? Does that sound like? Isn't it common sense? You tell him. Everyone knows, right? On the one hand, says Socrates, no, common sense as in the, people who don't reflect on themselves, are not familiar with the logos, have never reflected on their beliefs. They will claim their personal opinions and beliefs are true not because of any understanding, not because of not being able to share it in the dialectic where we all see it together. They'll say, it's just common sense. Just common sense, Socrates, I did say who I thought the teachers of these were, but you say that I'm speaking nonsense. Maybe you're right, so tell us and share with himself, looking at the self again, in ourselves or others, using our logos to benefit the self again, trying to guide the self of Meno. Focused on the self. Benefit has to benefit the self. We're talking to the self. We're not talking to his ego. We're not flattering his image or his mask. We're not trying to benefit his reputation or his mask or his ego, any of those things. We're not trying to benefit them. We're not even talking to them. We're not sharing our logos to it. Always focused on the self. Isn't that interesting? Given what he said about phronesis being either the whole of virtue or a part of it. Let's keep reading. So tell the self to which Athenians he must go. Tell him any name you wish. Anitos. Why must I be confined to a particular name? For any of the noble and good citizens of Athens he may encounter, without exception, will make him better than those damned sophists. If he is willing to be persuaded, of course. Socrates, did these noble and good people come to be this way spontaneously, Anitos? By having learnt from no one? But are nevertheless able to teach others that which they themselves did not learn? Anitos. I do indeed suspect that these people learned from the previous generation. I got it from my mama. By being also noble and good. And we can make those voices to make fun of those people who think this way. I know that's right because my daddy told me, and his daddy told him, and we all always believe in Jeebus. My daddy believed in Jeebus, and daddy said he saw the devil with his own eyes, and I believe him. He's a good man. And I'm a good man, so I believe in the devil too. We can do that. But that's mean, and we don't. Sometimes. We do. To make fun of this way of thinking, we're not making fun of the self that might be stuck in that way of thinking because of the beliefs he developed growing up in that family, in that country, in that period of human history. We're not making fun of the self. We're making fun of the false, harmful beliefs that harm selves, so that maybe even that self could see it, realize the absurdity, and laugh at it too. If you can laugh at a problem like that, it might be a mark of freedom from it. So that's what we're making fun of. Not the people. The pathologos, or false beliefs. So, that's why we do those voices. And plus, I'm good at doing impressions. I'm fantastic at it. I dare say I'm fantastic at doing the impressions. So they didn't learn it themselves, but they can teach others? What are you talking about, Anitos? Anitos replies, I do suspect these people learned from the previous generation who were also noble and good. Or does it not appear to you that there have been many good people in this city? Socrates says, it does indeed appear to me, Anitos, that there are good statesmen here. Now, is that a qualifier? He's saying there are not good people, but good statesmen? Is that a difference? Don't know. And there are even no less than those who came before. Oh yes, so there have been good statesmen of Athens now and in the past. But have they also been good teachers of virtue? Maybe being a good person means also being able to teach virtue if it's teachable. For this is what the Logos happens to be about, Anitos. Not if there are good people here or not, or in the past. We have been considering all along if excellence is teachable. Thus, by considering this issue, we are considering whether good people, both those now and before, knew how to transmit to another this excellence which the good selves were. Not have, were. These higher states of knowingness. Ousia, how was Ousia experienced? Like we talk about us having a mind, but that's two things. There's the you having a mind. But when the mind is experienced in that remembering experience at the end of learning, it's Ousia. How is Ousia experienced? Well, it's this funny thing. Ousia is experienced in a kind of way which is just like Ousia. In other words, Ousia is turning around and reflecting on yourself. To whatever level in the physical world we're limited, this kind of reflection the dialectic seems to be the highest kind of Ousia, self-reflection, with the Logos, of course, that we can do in the physical world. So it's the activity we do every day on this channel. It's the best thing we can do. It's the highest functioning we can have. It also leads to the next stage where you grasp it all at once, like my hand grasping through touch. Our mind can grasp itself through Ousia, not touch, but through Ousia. Grasp itself immediately, all at once. That's the knowingness experience. That's Ousia. But the thing being experienced is Ousia as well. Mind is Ousia. Being is Ousia. So the thing being experienced is Ousia. The activity of knowing it all at once is Ousia. And you experience it as Ousia. Ousia, Ousiaing, Ousia. See how it's self-contained? Just like Ousia itself is self-contained. Isn't that cool? So in other words, you experience Ousia as Ousia, just as Socrates seems to be hinting here, you would experience the virtue of self, being a good self, by being it. You don't have the virtues, you are the virtues. Just like you don't have mind in experience in Usia, you are mind. Now, that's cool, but also you have to be a little bit careful because there are people who have had that experience of Usia and they, as Usia, oh, it's me. I am this. I have discovered myself. It's also all there is. Usia, Usiring, Usia. So I've experienced the highest knowingness and the highest level of reality. That is a logical conclusion. Except it's wrong. If you identify, you are knowing yourself as Usia, as experience, through knowledge. There's a But then you can ask a question, well, what's beyond experience? What's the cause of experience, or what's having the experience? So even though you are knowing Usia as Usia, because we have got there through the Logos, we are familiar with asking questions, especially questions about causes. So in that experience, we won't say that is me. It's the experience of me. I'm knowing myself as Usia, but that's not me. So we don't get stuck in nous, and we can go beyond to phronesis, or the self. Or, to say it another way, the second hypothesis to the first, talking about the hypotheses of Parmenides. Because the hypothesis of Parmenides has the first as the real one. Parmenides doing a dialectic on what he thinks the self is, that's the first hypothesis. The person he's talking to said, I'm following your reasoning as you describe a pure one, but when you said this pure one is the self, I'm not buying it. I think the self could be something else. So then he goes through and he describes the 8 other possible ways of understanding, or the 8 other possible categories of self that people can think or believe in. And the next highest was the second, which is self-knowing itself as Usia. So that's interesting because that's the learning experience. If virtue was Usia, we could ask, is virtue teachable? We'd say yes. Well, learnable, it's learnable. So long as your teacher is asking questions and helping you follow the dialectic for yourself, then you are mastering the Logos and dialectic. And what does that lead to? Nous. Self-experiencing itself as Usia, or mind minding mind. So yes, you can learn it because it's that. It's an aspect of that, which your soul knows. The immortal part of your soul that you've forgotten about knows it. So it's just remembering. But it turns out virtue ain't there. So don't get stuck as knowing yourself as Usia, because we need to move on to phronesis, because even that experience of Usia could be harmful or beneficial. Therefore, we're not at virtue yet. We want that which is always beneficial. The good self. So we're talking about the one self. We can also say, well, Parmenides was using the pure one to describe himself. Socrates is talking about the good, because virtue is about doing good and being good. As you are. You don't have virtue, you are virtue, is the point he's making. So, what's beyond the experience of goodness? Well, in Parmenides, the second hypothesis is oneness. The first is the one. If goodness is the knowable experience, you could say what we're after in seeking virtue and phronesis is the good self. Or the one self, to use Parmenides' language. So, we want to know whether excellence is teachable. How do we transmit this excellence which the good selves are or were? In other words, they are it. It's integrated. It's their pure state of self, natural state of self. We're not putting on any masks. We're taking masks away. We're realizing our innate, divine, providential, rational, good daemon nature. So we want to know how, if they were able to transmit this excellence which the good selves were, or is it untransmittable and not receivable from one human to another? This is the question which Meno and I have been searching after. Therefore, Anitos, consider it in this way. Now, what have we been saying? Seek the self. Even in Usia, seek the self. How do we benefit? Benefit the self. Because are you really benefiting people to take people into the logos, into the dialectic, and then into nous, but stop before reaching the good self? Stop before reaching phronesis? No, because that can harm. You can actually use that to harm people, he said. Or do good. So what's the difference? You are doing good if you are using it to reach the self and phronesis. So that's why he's been saying, hey, let me talk to the daemon part. Maybe this is why he said daemon earlier. Let me talk to the daemon part of you, Anitos. Hey, Meno, let me talk to the self part of you. Hey, Anitos, address the self of Meno. Hey, Anitos, how can we benefit the self of Meno? Who should we send self to? By the way, these good people, they must be the good self. So if you are saying that there are good people, they must have the excellence of being the good self. So talk to that person, talk to the self, address the self, seek the self at all times. So what's this last sentence saying? Therefore, this is the question that Meno and I have been searching after, Anitos. Therefore, consider it with yourself. Use yourself to consider it. That would follow. What does Socrates say? Consider it in this way from the logos of thyself. Hooray, he got there.
Wow. It's a win-win.
So he is saying consider it with the self. Now, thyself is the highest self. That's the word that means the one self or the good self. Good self, Socrates mentioned here. One self is Parmenides' dialectic on the self. Both talking about the same thing. This one here. This one. The one self, the good self. So this is our physical world. Most people are stuck in the beliefs and opinions. And then you have the call to adventure that you are having right now if you haven't had it yet.
I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure.
Here's Gandalf giving you the call to adventure, call to awaken to your purpose and quest.
You're a wizard, Harry.
Here's Hagrid giving you the same call to adventure. Then we discover that, beliefs are shit. Although common, but shit. Although loved, dearly loved by Nazis, dearly loved by Mormons, dearly loved by, you know what? Anyone raised in a family gains crazy beliefs, different from everyone else. Everyone's are wrong and harmful. That's wild. We should know that and distinguish it from other ways of using our own psyche or mind. If you make that conclusion, you are waking up to dianoia. You can begin following the dialectic, mastering the self-logos. You can reflect on yourself in a new way. So beliefs, you're reflecting on yourself in a way that diminishes yourself, but confirms the stupid beliefs. The stupid beliefs that diminishes yourself. Don't diminish yourself. But I love diminishing myself. You only love it because you have associated it with what you believe to be virtue. Someone you looked up to shat on you, put you down, crushed you. And you still think they are good and beautiful. Until you realize they were not, you will mistake that abuse as love. We are familiar with this. Stockholm Syndrome and all that sort of stuff. Sadism, sadomasochism, so on and so on. So let's wake up from that. And awaken our own self-reflection, Usia. Master the logos as we're doing here. That can bring us into this realm of nous, or pure being, where we'll find courage itself and justice itself. The selves, the ideas, not forms. That's a bad translation from the past. We don't read anymore. And then even that, Usia as Usia, knowing yourself as Usia, we use as a stepping stone to know thyself. The good self, the one self. For an Asis that can make use of dianoia and understanding, as Socrates is doing, to be a good friend and to have an art that benefits what? The self. That uses nous, or knowledge, uses the knowledge of this experience. Because if you're truly seeking beauty, if you're truly seeking justice, if you're truly seeking the things that we thought were behind our opinions and beliefs, once you're free of that, you can seek the thing itself. Now you've got a model for beauty itself that you can use. You want to make something beautiful? There's your model. Beauty itself. You want to find what justice is? There's your model. So we're using the model of the highest expression of these things in everything we do, including midwifery, because when we say, oh, my parent looked really beautiful when they said, don't ask any questions. But now I realize I need to ask questions to learn shit. Was it really beautiful? No. What was it? Sadistic. Oh, interesting. I have a different... But I love her. Well, do you love Hitler as well? Because Germans loved Hitler just because he was daddy, or played into that pathologos model of their parents. Was it good to follow someone that you grew up with just because you grew up with them? No, that's the insult. You're a dog. Blind loyalty without any reason. But here we can gain... So we use that model to say, hey, by the way, is Hitler actually beautiful and good? The more we are familiar with the nature of beauty itself or justice itself, the better we can make those assessments. And to see what's false, and also use it for our creations or functioning or friendships. So that's what Socrates said is necessary for virtue. Obviously the dialectic and understanding, coordinated with nous, but guided by, mastered by, ruled by phronesis. Which is something to do with the self. Therefore, speak to the self of Meno. How can we help the self of Meno? Or, as we read, thyself means specifically this self, because this is the self knowing itself. That's a kind of self. Even here, as a individual in the physical world, we recognize we have a self. There is some self having these opinions and beliefs. There are some self having these physical experiences. So there's a self on each level. Or rather, the whole thing is self. The whole self. But thyself is the highest part. So that's interesting, because we have the idea of dianoia with nous ruled by phronesis. So there we have a 3-part snowman. 3 parts together, correctly arranged, with phronesis ruling. Now, if that's what Socrates said, but in reflecting on it ourselves, Usia, drawing, using our words, logos, drawing pictures, imagination, pictures, nous, words, self-reflection, we have got this thing has just come to light. These 3 circles of the snowman look very similar to these 3 circles of the 3 dimensions of reality. So what? Socrates is functioning down here, even though he's probably Well, we can see him always directing it to the self. So he's guided by this part, but he's functioning down here with us and with Meno and Enitos. He shows that he has some sort of knowledge of this, and he's using this as his model of excellence and justice, saying, hey, I'm using justice and courage as parts of virtue. So in other words, Socrates seems to be a snowman, guided by Phronesis, the one self, making use of the realm of being, in the knowable or learnable or rememberable object that is eternal, and even using it in his interactions with people in the physical world to help them overcome their false images, opinions, and beliefs, to benefit them. Maybe Socrates is giving us a demonstration of the perfect snowman. Could that be the whole self? Could that be the daemon? Okay, I like it. Let's carry that as a hypothesis, shall we? Because we're wondering about Phronesis' connection with the self. So maybe this is the object, or that's the level of reality itself. The state of being could be Phronesis. We're not sure. But the other question is, what's this all got to do with the daemon? Well, the daemon communicates to us here. Socrates is being a good daemon-like, helping these people. But the daemon does know and use this as its model. And it always directs us to our highest goal, the self. Could this be the daemon? Therefore, if so, there's a state of being higher than simply the self. The one self or the good self, maybe there's this whole self. I don't know. Maybe not. I'm not sure. Or maybe... I don't know how to conclude, but I did notice that these three circles look like a snowman. So I'm wondering if I could match that up together with what Socrates said. Maybe, maybe not. The point is, in the text, Socrates is saying, hey, Enitos, use your logos from thyself. Use your highest vision of yourself. Be your highest version of yourself, and make sure your logos is flowing from that higher version of yourself. That's the invitation Socrates is giving to Enitos. We can ask, is Socrates inviting him to be daemon-like? Is that why he called him a daemon? Is Socrates inviting him to a new way of being called virtue, or what we were calling the self-logos, bringing the whole thing together? Is Socrates inviting him to the same way of being we just discovered could be a new way of being for all of humanity? By saying, hey, this is the question on the table. If there are good selves, can they transmit that excellence to another human being? Consider it using, in this way, the dialectic from the logos. There's our logos of thyself. There's the self logos. Socrates seems to be inviting him to that very thing we ourselves discovered today is the next stage for a way of being in humanity. For all of us here, the way of being of the self-logos. How do we function to others? Even if they're yokels like Enitos, invite them to follow, invite them into this way of being. Reflect, ousia. In this way, dialectic. In what way? The self-logos. The logos of yourself, thyself. Not your image, not your mask, not your role, not your CV, not how much clout you have. The self that's beyond all of that and has been experiencing all the changes you've experienced in your life. There's something constant. What's that? So, there's the invitation. Consider, ousia, in this way, dialectic, from the self-logos, thyself logos. And then he asks the question after given the invitation, would you say that Themistocles was a good man? So there's the question. So we will see next time whether he takes the invitation. Can he function in this way? Can we function this way? If Anytos has it, can he transfer it to us? Can we be the good self and be Daemon-like? And always be considering Usia using the dialectic of the self-logos to reach the self-logos through the self-logos? Could we get that from Anytos? And finally complete our quest?
I'm looking for someone to share in.
Complete our job here, do what our soul came here to do, reach that highest state of happiness and functioning called the eudaimonia, the good daemon. Escape the chains of our problems and escape the prison of reincarnation, and function in the most beneficial good way, which may also be transferring that excellence of our good self to others. Can we do it all? Yes, we can. If next time we meet up, Anytos has it and can transfer it. So does he have it? Can he transfer it? If so, we are golden. So huge cliffhanger, huge stakes for our soul, for our lives, for our destiny, and for whether or not we can become virtuous. Huge cliffhanger. I hope you join me next time. As I said at the beginning, it's a cyclone about to hit where I live. I don't know how long I'll be without power or internet. I'm surprised that I have it right now, which is why I jumped onto this podcast for the wonderful, beautiful, open-minded, amazing souls that join me here for as long as you can, or if you're watching on YouTube at 2x speed, still, it's worth saying. And as Socrates says, if it's worth saying, it's worth saying many times. So I'm very appreciative for all of you, all 20 of you at this stage or something like that, maybe less. But yeah, so to show my appreciation, I'm using my time before I lose my power and internet to upload this, and yeah, stay in touch and maybe give you guys something to wonder about. I hope to see you soon. If not, I'll see you after my power and stuff comes back on. Thank you so much for joining me. Chicken says that she'll miss you, and Flamingo says that he won't, but he's just trying to be brave. He's really going to miss you the most. Look at him. He's so sad. But he's also embarrassed that he is so sad about missing you. But don't be sad. We can wonder about the eudaimonia, the whole self, the one self, the good self, and our purpose while we wait. So we can dance. They love to dance. I'll see you then. Bye.